Hello and welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott once again. So today we want to talk about a comparison between the Fire TV 4K versus the Fire TV 4K Max. So Amazon Fire TV 4K is a decent streaming device. In fact, I own two that I've used for a couple of years now. There's some performance problems it has, including memory, data storage, and user interface responsiveness. Plex Media Client performs well, except when using Plex Live TV and DVR from an HDHomeRun network tuner. My Plex server is based on a Ryzen 7 1700 Pro processor with 64 gigabytes of memory and no performance bottlenecks. Both Fire TV and Fire TV 4K Max are based on an ARM Cortex A53 system on a chip architecture, which is 64-bit, but both devices run Fire OS, which is a variant of Android, which is a 32-bit system. Plex Media Client will restart, buffer, or lock up at times while playing Plex Live TV and DVR from the HDHomeRun. Let's compare the Fire TV 4K with the new Fire TV 4K Max to see if these problems have been solved. So here's a comparison chart I built up. The Fire TV 4K was released in 2018, and the Fire TV 4K Max was released a couple of months ago in 2021. They both run pretty comparable processors, which are both Cortex A53 based processors. The new 4K Max has a 0.1 gigahertz advantage over the 4K. That's not a whole lot. And they both run a pretty comparable GPU, with the new 4K Max having a GPU that clocks in at 100 megahertz faster. The one big difference, though, that I noticed is that the 4K has 1.5 gigabytes of internal RAM, whereas the 4K Max has 2 gigabytes. I kind of wish they had improved that even beyond that point, because most Android devices now, like phones, go up to about 4 gigabytes of internal memory. So then the Wi-Fi is pretty much the same in both, except that the 4K Max adds 802.11ax, which is Wi-Fi 6, and we're going to see how that makes a huge improvement. And then they both allow you to adapt an external Ethernet adapter either at 10 or 100 megabits. And unfortunately, that's because the interface on the USB interface on the 4K and the 4K Max are USB 2.0. And then they both have 8 gigabytes of internal storage. I'd really wish they had improved that. And then external storage is supported on the new Fire TV 4K Max, but it was unsupported on the Fire TV 4K. So one of the reasons for that is because the old Fire TV 4K was based on Fire OS 6, which is Android 7.1, and it didn't support external storage out of the box. There were ways to support it, and I did it myself, but it wasn't really totally reliable. The new 4K Max, on the other hand, is based on Fire OS 7, which is Android 9 based, and it has indigenous support for USB on the go. So the video resolution for both is 4K at 60 Hertz. That's what it's advertised at, and they both run the same codecs with the exception of the 4K TV Max adding AV1 decoding, which is a really nice addition. So what about my network connectivity? Well, the Fire TV 4K connects to wireless 802.11ac, which is Wi-Fi 5, at 5 gigahertz to a Ubiquiti Unify AP-AC Pro. The Fire TV 4K Max connects to wireless 802.11ax, which is Wi-Fi 6, at 5 gigahertz to a Ubiquiti Unify AP U6LR. Both devices are on a dedicated VLAN for my IoT for performance and security reasons. And for internet streaming from public services, my Comcast and Xfinity service provides 1200 megabits down and 44 megabits up. So streaming services like Amazon Video, Netflix, Discovery Plus, Peacock, and YouTube can all stream 4K video to both devices very well with no buffering. So let's look at a speed test from both Fire Sticks from the Fire Stick perspective. First of all, here's a speed test out to the internet on the Fire Stick 4K. I did several speed tests, and the speed test application on the Fire Stick showed just shy of 119 megabits, and the upload speed was 43. So on the Fire TV 4K Max, we showed 291 down and 45 up. In several tests, it performed just shy of 300 megabits, which is really good. So what about Wi-Fi speeds on the Fire Stick themselves? So as far as the Fire Stick is concerned, it reports that the Fire Stick 4K was connected to Wi-Fi, and it believes that the signal strength is very good. It's using 5 gigahertz channel 149, and it says it has a very good connection, connected to the internet, no issues are found. So that's good news. The 4K Max pretty much did the same thing, with the exception of the fact that it said that the channel 40, which it was connected to, had a good quality as opposed to very good. So both channel 149 and channel 40 are overlapping Wi-Fi channels in the 5 gigahertz range. That's not really an issue in my area, since there isn't a lot of Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz traffic here. And so both devices have about a 15 to 20 foot unobstructed view of the access points. So what about the Unify AP connection speed? How does the Unify AP believe it's connecting back to the Fire TV sticks? Well, in the case of the 4K, it says that it has channel 149 connected, wireless 11, wireless AC, 802.11 AC, Wi-Fi 5, and it says it has a 99% signal with a minus 33 decibel attenuation. And then we have pretty much the same on the 4K Max. It has a little bit weaker signal, but it's doing just about as well. Okay, so the next thing we notice is that the 4K Max actually supports external storage. And so I plugged an external USB stick into the 4K Max. And if you go down to My Fire TV and you go to storage, you can see internal storage, which always seems to be right around 1 gig free. You have a total of just over 5 gigs. And if you install even a small number of applications, you'll find this fills up really quickly. And you have two options to format the storage for external. You can either expand the storage to use for applications, or you can set up a separate drive in Android, which can be used to store things like media files if you happen to store your media on your external storage on the Fire Stick, which I do not do. So I opted to use it for program storage. And you can see here that it says that there's a 62 gigabytes of 62 available, because it's only moved a few apps over there. And keep in mind, most Fire TV apps are anywhere between 30 or 40 megabytes up to usually about 110 or 120. But now I just happen to have a 64 gigabyte stick, so that's what I plugged in. Okay, so applications on the USB drive. If you go into the applications section and you go to managed installed applications, you'll see this little picture of a USB stick off to the side of apps that are running on USB. So not all apps can move over to the USB stick. If your app does allow it, if you go in to manage that particular app, it'll have an option that says either move to external storage, or if you've already moved it to external storage, like I have in the case of my Plex app, it gives you an option to move it back to internal storage. And like I said, not all apps can be moved to external storage because the developer had to enable that option to allow that to be the case. And I suppose I probably have about 9 or 10 apps that are actually on external storage at this point in time. Okay, the other really nice thing that the Fire TV Max adds is it adds a picture-in-picture capability. So those of you know that you can go out and voice command your Fire TV to display one of your cameras. So I happen to have several PoE cameras from around the house, and I'm displaying my driveway camera up here. Well, when you display your driveway camera or whatever camera with your voice, it'll come up full frame. And on the full frame, if you press the OK button, it gives you an option to turn it into a picture-in-picture like you can see here. And then the main picture here was simply something they're watching on a streaming service. And when it puts the picture-in-picture up here, it mutes the sound on the picture. Now, there's supposed to be several commands, voice commands you can use, like switch to full screen as you see here, or dismiss picture-in-picture. Unfortunately, those voice commands are not yet working because this is a really early release. At first, the mute wasn't even working when we put it in picture-in-picture, so the main sound was fighting with this sound in the background. But now they've corrected that, and it is in fact muted. So I look forward to seeing what other capabilities they'll have. Right now, the picture-in-picture has to go up in the upper right-hand corner. They don't give you any options to move it around. They don't give you any options to resize it. But hey, just wait and see, and we'll see what they do. So, in summary, my problems with Plex Live TV and VCR streaming from the HDHomeRun Connect 4K were fixed with the Fire TV 4K Max. It is apparent that the increase from 1.5 gigabytes to 2 gigabytes of internal storage were an advantage for large apps like Plex. And Wi-Fi 6 connection requires a Wi-Fi 6 access point. So don't think that just by buying one of these, you're going to have your problems go away, because you're going to need a Wi-Fi 6 device to connect to see the higher speed rates. But it's clear that I got major performance improvements. And that also includes performance improvements in the GUI, fast forwarding, rewinding off my Plex server, pausing. Everything is a lot more responsive than it was on the Fire TV 4K. So, in my opinion, the next Fire TV device needs to have USB 3.0, and it needs to have more than 8 gigabytes of internal storage. I was really hoping this time to see a Fire TV 4K with 16 gigabytes of storage, but we weren't that lucky. So kind of the standard is there's a cartoon out there that was developed a number of years ago called Big Bucks Bunny. It's a piece of animation. And I displayed it in 4K at 60 frames per second, which is supposed to be the ultimate capability of a 4K Max. And I ran it off of YouTube, and it showed 0 drop frames in the stats for nerds on YouTube, which just is absolutely incredible. I had lots of drop frames when I would try to do that before on the Fire Stick 4K. So I think the increase in memory, certainly the Wi-Fi 6 had a huge amount to do with why we're seeing this increased performance. So the PIP is great, but many voice commands for PIP are not yet enabled. And the Fire TV Stick 4K Max is really well worth it, even for the $55 list price. I mean, I know we just passed some of the Black Friday and Christmas specials where it was a lot less, But even for $55, I think this provides a lot more improvement, and I'm really pleased with it overall. So anyway, that's it for today, and thanks so much for visiting, and please subscribe and like to the channel, and we'll see you next time.